And we are live. Good morning, crypto warriors, and welcome back to the Gym of the Crypto, episode 742. Today is Tuesday, June 15, 2021, and I'm King.
And I'm Bitcoin Zay, and we are here to bridge the gap between cryptocurrency and the community Monday through Friday at 10-ish.
At 10-ish, and today's top story is MicroStrategy vows to sell $1 billion in shares to add to its vast Bitcoin treasure chest. Within 5 years, U.S. hedge funds expect to hold 10.6% of assets in crypto, and Tudor Jones could go all in on inflation trades once 5% Bitcoin allocation. And of course, we have a very special guest here for you today. But first and foremost, Bitcoin Zay, what's going on with these prices?
Oh, yeah. So taking a look at our prices today, Bitcoin is at $40,153. Down 0.8% today. Ethereum at $2,577 is up 1.1% today. Binance Coin sitting at $368 is up 0.05% today. Cardano at 157 had a slight flash crash yesterday, but up 0.8%. Dogecoin at 32 cents is down 1.6% today. XRP at 87 cents is down as well at 0.73%. Polkadot at 24.23 is actually up 8.7%. And last but not least, Uniswap at 23.83 is up 0.89%. So a lot of sideways movement on a lot of these cryptos so far, but Bitcoin seems to be the big winner over the last week.
Nice. All right. And of course, without further ado, I want to make sure we introduce our very special guest today. We've been telling you about him on Talk Shop Live. We will have him in today. We mentioned it yesterday on the show, but none other than Teeka Tiwari, who is the Executive Chairman Strategy Board at DeFi Technologies, a company aiming to become the world leader in offering services built upon decentralized finance. Also a former hedge fund manager and Wall Street executive, and he writes the most widely read premium crypto newsletter in the world, Palm Beach Confidential, counting over 600,000 subscribers. I can attest that this is all true because this was all the rage when it came to newsletters in 2017 for crypto reports. So again, let's welcome none other than Teeka Tiwari to the show.
Hey, what's up, Teeka? Glad to have you, brother.
Yes, thank you for being here, Teeka. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's wonderful being here, and thank you for having me.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Really quick, I have to ask, so many places to start with you, so many directions to go. Of course, we're going to dig more into it when it comes to the show. But first and foremost, what got you into crypto and Bitcoin? When did you enter the market? Like, tell us about your journey getting here.
Well, I come from traditional finance. I got my start working at Lehman Brothers in the 80s and then working in traditional finance all through the 90s. So when I first discovered Bitcoin in 2011, I did what every guy in traditional finance does when they hear about Bitcoin, is they immediately dismiss it as a Ponzi scheme. I thought, oh, okay, so there's a bunch of kids creating internet magic money and they're trading it amongst themselves. That's super cute. And I thought it would just collapse like any Ponzi scheme collapses. And what got me to look at Bitcoin as a real asset class was in 2015 when Bitcoin crashed, went from 1,400 down to, I think, $1.75, and it didn't go to zero. This was the critical piece of information for me. When it didn't go to zero, when it still had value, that told me that this wasn't a Ponzi scheme, that there was something that I was missing about Bitcoin, that there was a value proposition there that I wasn't grasping. And then I did a deep dive in it, and I understood how powerful the blockchain is, how powerful it is that you and I can transact value without having somebody sitting in the middle. That's never happened in the history of human capitalism. And then it was like a bomb exploded in my mind. And all I could do was think about Bitcoin, talk about Bitcoin, write about Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin, fly all over the world and discover Bitcoin. And my mission at that point was to convince as many people as possible to own Bitcoin, because I knew it would transform their lives in a way that no asset ever has or ever will.
Nice. So, and with all that, so you get started, first and foremost, you started working at Lehman Brothers at 18. Did I read that right?
I did. Yeah, that was my first job on Wall Street.
How did that work out to where you got that? Like, what were you doing there? Were you in mailroom, or was this like a real job as an analyst? And how did you get it?
No. I wasn't an analyst. I was on the lowest rung of the ladder. I was a cold caller, and I would connect the phone for the broker that I worked for. And then I would get the coffee, I would get the bagels, I would get the breakfast. I mean, I was, whatever they told me to do, I would do. And then from there, I had my foot in the door, and eventually they sponsored me to become a broker. And then I started managing money and became a VP by the time I was 20 years old.
And then we fast forward.
I was going to ask real quick, how was the interaction with the Lehman Brothers while you were there?
I was I was an insecure kid. So when I walked into my interview, I was wearing a pair of unfinished gray pants that were dragging on the ground because I didn't know you had to hem them. I was wearing white socks, $40 Favor shoes, a pink polyester shirt, a polyester tie that I had literally bought on the street downstairs for $5, and no jacket because I couldn't afford one. And I sat down with the hiring manager. His name was Frank, and I asked him for a job, and he was a nice guy. He said, "Look, this is not for you, kid. You should try something else." And I said to him, "Look, Frank, I'll work for free. I just want a shot." And back in the 80s at Lehman, a guy could walk in and tell you he was going to work for free, and a guy would give you a shot. And he gave me a shot, and that was all I needed.
Nice. Shout out to Frank. That was the best hire they had so far.
Right. So to kind of fast forward into it, you get, eventually you're working at Lehman, you work your way up the corporate ladder, you're doing your own thing in investments and banking and venture capital. Somehow, as you explained to us, you come upon crypto, you come upon Bitcoin. How did the Palm Beach report start? How did the newsletter start for you to say, hey, let me do a newsletter where, again, we know you are already doing the Palm Beach reports where you had traditional stock options in there,
right?
But then you started adding crypto ones in 2017. What made you pivot to that?
What made me pivot to that was that I needed a platform to get this idea out to, and there was a lot of disinformation at the time around Bitcoin. And I realized my role was to help educate the space. And the Palm Beach letter goes out to a very traditional audience. My audience is between 45 to 75 years old. So these were a group of people that ordinarily would never get exposed to Bitcoin. And now I had to fight my publisher to let me write about Bitcoin. They said, there's no way we're going to let you write about Bitcoin.
Oh, when it first hit, that was the talk on the underground, on Telegram. Everybody was like, oh, this report is for old people and their retirement plans. Like
right.
That literally was the talk. At first, like the first couple reports, people were like, the younger groups weren't paying attention. They was like, man, this is for older people. And then like, nah, they was like, but these older people buying money, they pumping they
got the money
in there.
That's right. That's correct. They have the money, and they needed the education, which is why I wrote in a very simple way for people that had never been exposed to these assets before. And I still continue to write in that way. I think one of the greatest tragedies right now is that only a very small percentage of the world is going to get rich from cryptocurrency. And that, why should that be? Why shouldn't everyone have a chance to even out their life in the way that crypto can offer? And so in my small way, I try to add to that. I try to help people understand why this has value and why they should allocate at least a small percentage of the net worth to it.
So with that being said, what is your definition of Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin to you?
Okay, so getting aside from blockchain, right? I consider the blockchain network and the Bitcoin token to be two different things. So I'm going to talk about what does the Bitcoin token mean to me. So the Bitcoin token means to me, it's a non-dilutable, non-forgeable, inelastic form of wealth, meaning that no matter how much demand happens, you can increase supply. That you can easily store it, you can easily trade it, you can easily sell it. So that's never existed before, that type of asset class. And I'll tell you why that type of asset class is needed. And that's from my background working on Wall Street. There's an enormous market needed where people can put money in and store their wealth. So if you look at the gold market, it's a $10 trillion gold market. Its primary use case is to store wealth. There's $18 trillion in negative yielding debt. Well, why would you buy a bond that you have to pay to hold? It's because you need a bucket big enough to hold your wealth. And so that's why people do it. You have a $17 trillion art market that's up for grabs and a $100 trillion equity allocation market. So when I look at Bitcoin, it's this non-dilutable asset. It's an asset that cannot be forged. It's an asset that no matter the demand for it, miners, the people that produce it, can't produce more to meet the demand. You can easily store it, you can easily trade it, you can easily sell it. So that what it is to me primarily is a way to store and transfer vast quantities of wealth, which means it's going to steal a lot of market share from these other areas, and it's going to become a lot more valuable, which is not what you asked me, but I wanted to give you a holistic picture.
I'm glad you gave it like this holistic, the feedback for it was so holistic. That way everybody does understand where you're coming from fundamentally. And no, that makes a lot of sense. So with that, we'll get some more, definitely have a lot more questions from you, but let's jump into our first article of the day. One of the top stories of the day, MicroStrategy, again, top story at the top story. They know how to steal that narrative, folks. MicroStrategy files to sell $1 billion in shares to add to its vast Bitcoin treasure chest. Bitcoin Zay, what's going on here with Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy?
Oh, man. So Michael Saylor's done it again. He's basically held true to his word at this point that he's buying as much Bitcoin as possible. He plans to sell as much as $1 billion in common shares with an eye to adding to its huge holding in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin more specifically, it said in its S3 filing. So he completed the sale of $500 million in high yield senior secured notes so he could buy more Bitcoin. And they may also sell 1 billion in shares, which would allow them to buy even more Bitcoin. And if you look at the public treasuries that hold Bitcoin at this point, MicroStrategy is way ahead of anybody else. And of course, we've said this before, this is only the start of companies starting to allocate very regularly like this. And he may have come up with a new business idea of raising money just to buy Bitcoin. Why not take the dirty fiat cash and turn it into Bitcoin, and your company can succeed? So long term, I think this is probably going to make him a legend in 2 games. And I think Michael Saylor has definitely put his money where his mouth is. So shout out to Tesla. And for the good news of buying another $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Slow down, Michael, save some for us, man. We gotta allocate some of this Bitcoin as well.
Yes, it's kind of crazy essentially seeing him, what seems to be trading in his company for a Bitcoin. He's like, hey, if I could sell this whole physical company and get a bunch of Bitcoins in a bag back return, I'm making it happen. But Teeka, you actually were on Wall Street. You rubbed shoulders with these types of billionaires and companies and organizations. What are your thoughts on Michael Saylor in general, what he's been doing? And then what are your thoughts on what he's doing with his company as far as doing things like selling $1 billion in shares to add to his Bitcoin treasure chest? Do you think this is a good move by a company, or should he be more focused on growing the company and then with profit, possibly looking into Bitcoin?
I would say he's making the right move for his company because the business that he's in is a low growth business and the stock price is doing nothing. My concern with his decision is with him taking on additional debt. This is debt with a fixed cost. And one of the things that you learn very early in Bitcoin is it's not a good asset to leverage. Anything that can drop 80% or even 50% in a day doesn't do well with leverage on top of it. So I'm concerned about the leverage, how he's going to manage that exposure. But the biggest story for me behind this offering is not so much Saylor leveraging and going all in on Bitcoin, but you need to look at the demand for those products. The fact that a demand exists for $1 billion worth of bonds for a company that is buying Bitcoin is insane. The fact that he could raise another $500 million and it was 6 times oversubscribed tells you that the appetite, the institutional appetite with real money for this asset class is just out of control. And there's just no proper wrapper that they available right now for that institutional money to use to get into Bitcoin. If there was a way for those institutions to buy it, that their charters allowed, they would do it. The reason why these offerings are doing so well is because it's basically buying Bitcoin in disguise in a wrapper that an institution can own, that their charter says they can own.
Are you saying we have ETFs before we have ETFs? Is that what you're telling me right now?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely happening. I mean,
right?
Yeah, MicroStrategy is essentially a levered Bitcoin ETF at this point.
Yeah, and we've made that argument before that a Bitcoin ETF getting approved is sort of a non-mover at this point, because you can basically do the same thing. You can invest in a company who's invested in Bitcoin, and that's actually lower leverage than an ETF. So it might actually be a better choice.
And your thoughts on Michael Saylor himself, as far as his foray into Bitcoin, some of the things he's doing? What are your thoughts there?
I think he's one of the greatest educators in the space. He's brought a different level of money into the space that nobody else other than him could have brought into the space. I think what he's doing is incredible. What I will say, though, is that I've been in the space since 2016, and I've seen personalities come and I've seen personalities go. And I want to remind everybody watching that Bitcoin is bigger than any one individual. And Bitcoin doesn't need a savior. It doesn't need one person to manage it. So I would just be very cautious about placing your faith in a person rather than placing your faith in Bitcoin. Bitcoin will not let you down. People will.
I'm glad you brought it around with that, because at first you were so optimistic about saying, hold on, which direction are we going here, Teeka? And then you brought it home. So I'm glad you brought it home. But I'm glad you mentioned that too. That's something we always talk about on the show. When we're like, stop listening to these billionaires or these organizations, these narratives. Like, look at the technology, look at the code, look at the bits, look at the zeros and ones. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. So I agree with you. It's one of those things where we've seen it now. I actually would love your thoughts on meme coins, especially with meme coins. We're seeing it with the meme coin craze, the irrational market, Dogecoin, this coin, that coin. And you usually see people pumping it. Mark Cuban's accepting Dogecoin for his Mavericks gear now or whatever. But again, at the end of the day, when you talk about Bitcoin, you can just look at the project and look at the technology and understand that it lives on its own. But what are your thoughts when it does come to these meme coins and the markets around them? And even from a traditional standpoint, do you see someone like Michael Saylor pulling the move like Mark Cuban, say, hey, maybe we do need to put Dogecoin on the balance sheets? I can't even say with a straight face.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Saylor did that. I think meme coins are fun as long as you don't take them too seriously. You want to trade them, you want to have a little fun, you want to use a little bit of money, nothing that's going to put you out of business. Have at it. I mean, it's a good time, but I wouldn't confuse it with something like Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a use case that will continue long after all of us have passed away. Dogecoin, I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But again, just put it in the right bucket. Put it in the fun bucket, not what I'm going to build my life on bucket.
Yeah, they definitely say that for the people in the back, because there are some people using their savings to buy Doge and buy some of these meme coins. I think they're going to, it was one coin last night that went up 160,000% and then went down 99% right after it. So it's just, like you said, put it in the fun bucket, give it to your kids, give it, for their allowance, but you're right. Definitely don't take that stuff very seriously.
Yeah, correct. That's a perfect way of using that. In fact, back in 2016, I bought Doge and gave some to my kids, and they're all very happy now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you couldn't tell the Doge army that. They think this is the first time in 2021 Doge has ever pumped, and the rest of us are just losers.
No,
never made money on it.
We've seen many pumps in Doge over the years.
All right. Within 5 years, U.S. hedge funds expect to hold 10.6% of assets in crypto. I think this is a really important story, not just to talk about what's going on with mainstream adoption, but to also hear your thoughts here in a moment. As essentially, I will give it to you. When you talk about traditional investors, like you said, that 45 to 75-year-old crowd, listen, you're one of the first people that was loud about marketing and targeting them. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But North American hedge funds are at the vanguard of crypto curious investors, although EU and UK funds are not far behind, expecting to hold 6.8% of their assets in crypto within 5 years. And of course, looking at these North American ones going up to as high as 10.6% of assets. People, that is incredibly high, considering that we are just now getting directives from the banks like Goldman Sachs or I think So I said Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, and some of them have put out directives saying, hey, we are all about crypto custody now, as long as you all do up to 2%. They wanted you to do up to 2% of your wealth. And now, again, we're having articles coming out saying, hey, maybe we can see this go up to 10.6% within the next 5 years. I think that is an incredible pace for any asset class to start to be invested in, coming from the traditional market. But again, Bitcoin, Zay, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh yeah, well, I would say, why so bearish? I mean, good gracious, 10%, that's nothing. No, but really for a very conservative group of people, which hedge fund managers are, I believe 10.6% is actually very high for their portfolio exposure. I don't think it will take 5 years though. That's why they have the within 5 years, just to give themselves, more brevity, more chance to say that. But I think that'll actually happen within the next 2 or 3, simply because the next halvening is 2024.
That's a good point. It is going to be accelerated.
Exactly. I don't think with the next halvening, with the demand that will be here by that time, that hedge funds will sit around and watch this. They will not stop at 10%. I think it'll actually go past that. But they're being conservative, just because I think if they came out and said, yeah, we're probably going to end up putting 25 to 30% in it, the market would take off today, like right now. It would just literally take off. People would just be buying willy-nilly. So they do have to keep it conservative. But again, I do think that this is inevitable and it's coming, whether they want to or not.
Teeka?
I agree 100%. You're absolutely right. There's nothing, if there's one thing everybody can take away from this live stream right now, is that you never go broke betting on Wall Street's greed. And their greed in these hedge funds for alpha, for returns, excess returns, knows no bound. Imagine yourself on your greediest, most self-centered day. Now times that by 100. And that's your average hedge fund guy. So yes, they will hit that 10% level very, very quickly and probably go way past it.
And now as we start to talk about hedge funds and different picks and projects, I do want to key in on your Palm Beach letter. And to be clear, you still have this running, correct, as far as your crypto ones? It's a separate one.
Yes, Palm Beach Confidential.
So Palm Beach Confidential, okay. And you can see that here, folks. This is the website if you want to check it out, palmbeachgroup.com. Again, this is Teeka Tiwari, the editor of the flagship service, the Palm Beach Letter, Small Cap and Cryptocurrency Advisory, Palm Beach Confidential. Again, people, I will tell you that Palm Beach Confidential, back in 2017, people were putting their money together, trying to get a hold of one. They were going through different types of pump and dump groups saying, hey, when this thing hits the streets, you better be in on these picks. It was all types of things you were going on. Personally, I would say, I remember you from your Ant Shares pick. I remember the Ant Shares pick. I already had it on my radar from a couple of things. And yours was, I mentioned this on the show today. When I saw it in your report, it was the third time I saw it. And for me, 3 is a trend. I was like, all right, he got in his report too. This thing is taking off. When we saw Ant Shares, of course, turning Neo. I think you called it actually at like, you correct me if I'm wrong, I'll give it to you like 50 to 75 cents or something. And then that thing ran all the way up to like $9 before eventually going to $81. So when you talk about picks like this, how do you find your projects? How did you find the Ant Shares and Neos of the world? How did you decide? Because you weren't even, of course you mentioned Bitcoin, but some of these altcoins you were mentioning, I'm talking about to your crowd, that had to be like Ant Shares.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
It was difficult, but I recommended Ant Shares at 13 cents.
13, wow. 13 cents, yeah. 13 cents, people.
13 cents, and it went almost to $100.
It went up to $100 from 13 cents. And I saw it when you recommended it too. Like I said, I saw it when it happened.
Yeah, I found Ant Shares. I was traveling a lot and making a lot of contacts in the community, and I was asking around for any Chinese projects that I should pay attention to. And then somebody told me about Ant Shares. And at the time, it only had a $5 million market cap. And then I reached out to some more people and they arranged for me to speak to the team. So I think I did a call at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was speaking to one of their team members. And I looked at it. They had $8 million in cash in the project. And they had a $5 million market cap. And I said, well, okay, well, the risk, there's basically very little risk here. And I've got all this upside where if this could become the Ethereum of China, And so I put out a buy recommendation on it. And here's the thing about crypto, right? I put a buy recommendation on it at 13 cents and it dropped to 8 cents like that. And people were, so we were getting it at 8 cents. And so from there, of course, it just exploded. It got up to as high as 198. But a quick lesson I took from that was sometimes when you buy something that ends up being the biggest winner of your career, which AntShares went up 153,000%. Sometimes it doesn't work right out of the gate, right? I mean, we were down 30% immediately. I remember when I recommended Ethereum, I had a buy up to of $20 and we were buying it up at $20 and then Ethereum collapsed to 5. And you look at that, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's an idiot. Or you say, if it was your idea, you say, oh, I'm an idiot. And it's down 75%. I say, no, you're not an idiot. Sometimes the market is idiotic. And
so you say that again.
Right. Sometimes the market is idiotic. So don't confuse the market's idiocy with your own. If your research is good and your position size makes sense, put your position on. Don't worry if it drops 75%. Just stand pat. You know how many coins I've had that have dropped 75, 80% before making 5,000, 10,000, 15,000% gains? More than I can count. So
yeah. And we actually had somebody on the show who was encouraging us to not buy the dip or to not buy in during the bear market. And, it's funny coming from someone who's not experienced, because then when you talk to people with the experience, they all say the same thing. If you do the research and you are, convicted that this coin works, stop worrying about the price. The people will catch up at some point, because again, from that point, from a $20 Ethereum, you had a 100x. So, most people have never experienced that in their life. We have with certain coins, but when you see that, you start to realize, yeah, this is a long game. And you were doing this in 2017, where it was a lot of ICO, a lot of marketing for whatever projects, and this sort of cut through that directly to the coin. So yeah, appreciate that, man.
And BGN, thank you for the tip, much appreciated. Teeka, I gotta be honest, I am so curious about the business side of how you even how were you able to attract the energy, the press, the underground press? Like I said, how were you able to attract the cryptocurrency sector's attention in 2017 when you started doing these reports? Again, your initial reports had traditional stock picks in it. Like you said, the crowd you were going after, to me, were like the boomer crowd, 45 to 75 years old. Right. But all of a sudden, I'm hearing about Palm Beach reports on Telegram groups. Like, how was that possible for it to transcend that way?
I just made the decision to start talking to my audience about it. And so I started educating them, and their kids and their grandkids were all interested in crypto. And then I was drawing parallels to traditional assets like gold. So there's this thought that if you're 45 to 75, you have no interest in learning or doing anything new. And it's just not true. It's more difficult to access information when you're that age, because you've got families, you've got businesses, you've got employees, you've got so many things going on. So you need things to be easier to understand and digest. And so that's what I did. I made really a 6-month investment in just putting out educational content every single day to my readers. And bit by bit, as they got educated, as they saw the prices increase, they said, okay, maybe there's something here. And they started to get their feet wet. And then, of course, they got deeply involved in crypto. And I've got grandmothers, 80-year-old grandmothers, that know how to set up wallets and know how to trade and know how to buy and sell. It's really incredible.
Oh, I definitely believe it. If you're listening today, believe that is the truth. I'm telling you, people, West Palm Beach, that was all the talk of the town. It was Palm, and I was just like, Palm Beach, why are we looking at this retirement paper? Then when we started taking a closer look, we're like, this is why we're looking at it.
I want to give you your credit, Teeka. You probably helped build half of crypto Telegram.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's crazy.
In 2017, everybody was running around like chickens with their head cut off. Nobody really knew what they were doing in the crypto market, except for people who have been around for a while. So this report was like the basis for a lot of Telegram groups to try and get people in there. So it's a few Telegram groups that probably owe you money, Teeka. You probably want to look for them.
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
It was some groups. They were trying to hawk your Palm Beach reports underground. Like it was.
Yo, trust me. Yeah, we used to see them everywhere. We used to be like, all of you all paid? No, there's no way all of you all paid.
I was just about to say that. That was what happened to groups. It'd be like, one person out of the group might pay, and then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, this group costs $200 to get in." All of a sudden.
Man, that's what I'm saying. The Telegram infrastructure literally was built with your foundation, like, and it sucked because it dishonest because we were actually paying for it, and I was like, "Man, we can start a group off of somebody else's stuff," and it's Telegram, so it's hard to find, but it definitely a pioneer there, Teeka.
So, okay, in addition to the reports, what else are you working on? I did see, of course, you have this DeFi technologies. Can you tell us about that? What's going on there?
Yeah, so what I really love about what's going on with DeFi.tech is that they're making it easier to get access to decentralized finance protocols. So again, you've got this huge part of the world that will never go to an exchange or mess around with the Uniswap wallet to buy Aave or to buy any of these coins in a space. So DeFi.tech, what they're doing is they're essentially building wrappers around certain products. So like Polkadot and Cardano, Ether, Bitcoin. So they're making it easier for people to buy and sell these currencies without going too far outside of their comfort zone. And so I think that's the future. I think the future is if you want to see this scale, you've got to make it easier to buy. You've got to make it easier to transact in, and you've got to put it in a wrapper that the bulk of the population can understand. And the fact is, the bulk of the population, 500 million people that buy and sell stocks every day, they do it through traditional brokerage firms. They don't do it through non-traditional means. And so DeFi.tech is stepping in there and filling in that gap. And they're doing it really well, in my opinion.
And are they already up and running as far as people can sign up and actually use the platform?
Yeah, so it's not a platform. It's investment products that are listed in Europe right now. So yes, it's up and running. There are hundreds of millions of dollars have already been committed to these products. So for instance, let's say you're in Europe and you want to get access to Cardano and you're an institution, you can go in and buy one of DeFi.tech's exchange traded products that give you direct access to Cardano or Polkadot or Ether or Bitcoin and for free. There's no charge for it. So again, I think that's a robust area of growth that's going to continue. And I think this idea of giving people easy access to not just decentralized finance, but the whole crypto space, that's a massive trend. That's a long-lived trend.
So I would assume DeFi, of course, since you're in bed with them, that makes so much sense. But also, if it's just DeFi, cool. But where do you see this market going? I guess in its totality, what's next for Bitcoin? What's next for cryptocurrency? What's next for regulation when it comes to the DeFi market? Now regulators are saying, "Hey, that's our next way to eat this year." What's going on with that?
Those are a lot of questions.
I know. I'm sorry. I told them all at you.
Okay, so what's next for Bitcoin? Bitcoin is just going to continue implacably eating value from other assets that don't have as good a value proposition as Bitcoin. So the first is gold. Bitcoin will go and continue to eat gold's lunch. I think that will continue forward for years. That will be the story for Bitcoin. For the entire ecosystem as a whole, I think we've found a killer app or a killer use case for blockchain, and that is decentralized finance. And I think decentralized finance, we're barely scratching the surface. We're a millimeter in to the surface of what that's going to be. There's nobody alive today that understands how big that will be.
They're trying to regulate it right now.
Well, I mean, good luck. Tell me how you regulate Uniswap. Explain to me right now how you regulate that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's code that lives in a machine that nobody controls. How do you regulate that? We're talking about peer-to-peer transactions through wallets and through a decentralized autonomous organization. There is no way to regulate that. So that's why you don't have massive regulation right now, because there's no way to enforce it. You could say, well, they're going to shut off the fiat on-ramps. Well, think about that. How do you shut off the fiat on-ramps when Coinbase is public with a $50 billion market cap? How do you shut off the fiat on-ramps when Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley are all offering this product to their customers? So you can't shut off the fiat on ramps and off ramps. You can regulate them. You can say they've got to go through these regulated entities. Okay, no big deal, but you can't shut them down. And if you can't shut them down, and that means that fiat can get back into the system and go into DeFi. So if that can't be stopped, then you have to look at the incentives that drive the adoption of DeFi. And those incentives are massive yield and much lower cost, virtually frictionless transactions. Those incentives are so large that they will ultimately displace the traditional financial system. You think about, I'll give you one use case, right? So think about traditional trade settlement. Every trade right now that happens in the world, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars worth of trades, it's two guys. One guy has the asset, one guy has the money. They don't trust each other. So they have to, this guy has to prove that this guy has his stock, this guy has to prove he has his money. And it takes 1 to 3 days for that to happen. That's insane. And it costs billions and billions and billions of dollars in costs. Well, you put that on a DeFi platform, you can't, it's a non-forgeable. I know he has the stock. I know he has the money. It's instantaneous settlement for pennies versus dollars. So when you have an incentive that's that large, there's nothing you can do to block it, right? So I would say always look at the incentives and think of the incentives through the eyes of big business, because they are the people that basically move the world around. You look at the shepherds of capital. That's what I like to call them, right? The big shepherds of capital, and understand what incentivizes them. And then I do, which leads me to believe that DeFi is going to be massive.
You know what? And that's a perfect segue. As one of those shepherds, Paul Tudor Jones could go all in on inflation trades once 5% Bitcoin allocation. Bitcoin Zay, Paul Tudor Jones, he is flexing those billionaire muscles. What's going on with them?
Oh, yeah. So like other billionaires, they're trying to find a way to retain their wealth. And one of the biggest things with people who don't have a lot of money is they don't understand that even billionaires get their money taken away from inflation. And Paul Tudor Jones has gone on CNBC on Monday yesterday. He stated he's going all in on inflation trades if the U.S. Federal Reserve remains indifferent to rising consumer prices. I actually saw a report today that inflation may be somewhere between 12 to 15%. I saw another report about meat maybe rising upwards 30% in price once it gets down to consumer prices. So I think we can start to see it coming. And he discussed the implications with Fed Chair Jerome Powell's insistence on characterizing the recent acceleration in inflation as transitory, which again, here at the Gentleman of Crypto, we all know that's pretty much lies, just trying to make sure that all the sheep are calm. But he's talking about putting 5% of his wealth into Bitcoin. Also, he's buying commodities and gold, because if you have a lot of money and to retain that wealth, you have to put it into investments that can beat inflation year over year, or you're losing money. So it's good to see Paul Tudor Jones say that. He is a legend in the investing game. And because he has mentioned Bitcoin as a 5% allocation, just like we stated before with the hedge funds, I really think that's more like 25%, 30%. He's just not trying to, like if Paul Tudor Jones says, I'm putting a quarter of my wealth into Bitcoin, we'll have another bull market start tomorrow. So again, I think he's just being conservative, but it's good to see that his corporation, they have actual ties with Coinbase, with Bakkt, and his personal account as well.
I'm with you on that. I think you can up all those numbers. He probably has a little bit more in gold, definitely has a lot more in Bitcoin and crypto. Cash might be the right amount, 5%. And the commodities, he might have a little bit more than that as well. So I'm with you on that. What are your thoughts on this, Teeka, as we see more billionaires start to try to beat inflation by going over to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
I think the key thing with Paul Tudor Jones is when he originally came out and recommended Bitcoin, he gave permission for every other hedge fund to get involved in Bitcoin. He took the risk of getting fired for buying Bitcoin away because he has so much credibility in the space. And the fact now that he's upping his allocation, originally he talked about he had a single digit allocation, which we all assumed was 1% to 5%. Again, it's going to give everybody else permission in the space to up their allocation. And of course, they're going to go higher than 5%. So I think hugely bullish. And again, to piggyback this on the Saylor news, the fact that he has no problem selling stock and bonds to raise capital is hugely bullish for Bitcoin. I mean, if you're looking for a big red neon buy sign, it's there. Okay, it's there. No one's going to knock on your door and say, "Hey, Jim, this is Bitcoin," and, a big B with a cape on and say, "Time to buy." Okay, it's never going to happen. But when you have these incredibly smart operators coming in and buying at these levels and upping their allocation, you have to pay attention. They didn't get to accumulate all this wealth by accident.
Yeah,
and so it says a lot.
Yeah, it's always funny hearing hundred-aires trying to argue with billionaires. Like, they're like, oh, well.
That's right. It always blows my mind when I see that, when I see people say, "Oh, I think when Saylor at 9K, I think Saylor's wrong." I think Saylor's worth $2 billion, right? What is your net worth? What puts you in this ability to say that you have better financial judgment than him or any of these billionaires?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see. When you're looking at Bitcoin, one of the things people always say, still to this day, we have to always debate on here, is it's too late to buy Bitcoin. They're all about buying altcoins because, of course, they're looking at the fiat price, like how much you can make, how much you can make. What do you say to those people who say, "I don't want to buy Bitcoin. I want to buy Ripple"? We had a Ripple debate the other day. I want to buy XRP. I want to buy Dogecoin. These are the ones that's going to make me my money. What are your thoughts on that kind of argument, I guess?
It's the number one thing that I deal with. Bitcoin is too expensive. When I can why buy at 36,000 when I can buy Doge at 36 cents? So Brian Estes did a talk on this. He's the guy that runs Off the Chain Capital, a big hedge fund, Bitcoin fund. And he gave a speech at the Bitcoin conference, which I highly recommend everybody watch. It's on YouTube. And he talked about one of the biggest mistakes of his career was when he was 22 and he started in the brokerage business. An 80-year-old broker told him to buy Berkshire Hathaway. It was $8,000. And he said, "How can I buy Berkshire Hathaway? It's $8,000. Give me $1 stock that's going to go to 100 instead." And Berkshire Hathaway went from $8,000 to over $400,000, a 50x, which is life-changing in the traditional stock market. So the same is true with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's I believe is going to go to $500,000 within 5 years. I don't know what Doge will do. So you want to bet on the sure thing and don't worry about the unit price. Just look at the overall aggregate market cap, and the market cap's going to blow up. It's going to explode in value. So I know nobody will listen to that. Everybody will chase the meme coins, which is fine. You only make that mistake once. So if this is your first cycle, okay, you'll make that mistake, exactly. And then you'll learn in the next cycle. That's okay.
They'll be here for another 2 or 3 years to learn all they can.
Right. I mean, we can talk till we're blue in the face. We've seen a couple of cycles, 3 cycles at this point. And we tell people that all the time. It's like you get one time around to make that choice and make that bad decision. But after that, there's really no more excuses. And if you stick with it, cool. But there are a lot of holders who are still down in Bitcoin with a lot of these coins. Pretty much every single one.
All right. Now, you don't have to answer this, but our warriors would get after us. We didn't ask. All right. Your thoughts. Where are the top coins for the rest of the year? You know the question. Where are the top coins? Which ones to stay away from? Which ones do you love? What can you give our viewers? And of course, where should you direct them to find you if they want to work, follow you on some of your projects or get involved with some things you're doing?
Well, they can follow me at palmbeachgroup.com, but I also recommend everybody check out DeFi.tech. It's a publicly traded company. Full disclosure, I own stock in the company. My opinion is deeply biased. So let's just get that out of the way.
The fact that you can say that, though, means a lot. And that's why we like having people like you on the show, where it's like, I'm not going to say nothing about it. Like you're being transparent about it. So appreciate that for sure. And I just put both of those links to DeFi.tech and the Palm Beach Confidential as well in the chat box as well. Folks will have in the description after the video. But go ahead, Teeka, pardon me.
Yeah, and in terms terms of coins, of course, I can't give away coins that my paying subscribers are
No problem,
that I've given
no
to
problem.
them. But what I will say is that Bitcoin is cheap. It's cheap, 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 like you can't understand. And I know it doesn't feel cheap. But hear me, I've been in this space since 2016. I've helped more people make more money from crypto than any other human being on the planet. Period. End of discussion. Millions of people have read my work and millions of people have changed their life. We've done it in bull markets and we've done it in bear markets. And my message all throughout that time has stayed the same. When we were down 80% in 18, 19, I did not hide under my desk. I did videos every week and I told my readers, I know this is horrible. I know you hate me. I know you're probably putting needles in a Teeka doll right now. I'll take it. Just don't sell. Hold on. We will get to the other side of this. Okay. So I mention all of that because you would be making a massive mistake if you don't own Bitcoin here. It's cheap. I promise you it's cheap. You will look back and you will tell your children, wow, this bold guy on the internet told me to buy Bitcoin at 40K and he pounded the table and I didn't listen to him. And your kid's going to look up to you. And Bitcoin's, I don't know what it's going to be, maybe $5 million. And your kid's going to say, and you didn't listen to him? You didn't even buy a little bit?
Exactly. We say that all the time. We say, hey, even if you don't like Bitcoin, do it for your kids or your grandkids. They won't respect you in 20 years if you looked at this market and said, no, I'm just going to ignore it until it gets, I don't know what people are waiting for. So yeah, you're right. If not for yourself, do it for your grandkids, man. They won't, I don't think anybody is going to have generational wealth unless they have some sort of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in the future.
I 100% agree. Generational wealth matters.
I really want to press upon everybody who's watching and listening, like put this into consideration. Like, so I got into the crypto space myself in 2016 as well. Again, I stumbled upon Teeka's and his Palm Beach reports in 2017, like Bitcoin, as they said, through Telegram groups and everybody. I mean, you all don't understand when I say all the rage. I'm trying to think what I can compare it to right now. Bitcoin, say like what's it's basically like DeFi. How DeFi is the buzzword, people. Palm Beach reports was like for traders at least. It's like you ain't seen the Palm Beach report yet. Like, hey, better get your hands on that before you make some plays out here. Like everybody who was trading knew about it. Poloniex Troll Box, Palm Beach reports all through it. You talk about BitTrex, people are on there trying to pump and dump based off the report when it came out and stuff. So literally that report had a lot to do with the first 6 months of 2017. Now I bring that up because again, you have Teeka here on the show today who called Ant shares, which is now Neo at 13 cents, as he mentioned. Again, I saw, I think when I saw from his reports, I believe because it was about 20 something cent, 20, 30% for me as well. And Teeka, I actually missed out on that because we were, long story short, we were hacked around the same time we were going to make that buy on the exchange. We were making the buy on, we were hacked. It was crazy. So we actually missed that. And that was going to be the life-changing project for me. But I draw this entire story to say, people, he has picked altcoins before. Like when he picked Ant shares, like you said, I think it went up, 17,000% or something, or whatever crazy percentage it was. And that wasn't the only pick. I've seen other picks. But my point is, he's picked altcoins before that has had life-changing effects on people, which we know for a fact. And I will give you props on that. You probably have made more people money in crypto than anyone out there just off the Palm Beach report and those returns. And I say all this to say he still said to buy Bitcoin. People at $40,000, he didn't come on the show telling you about an altcoin that's in dollar or an altcoin that's here or an Oracle network that can do this or speculative project that can do this, even though they can make life-changing money. And I'm sure he has some of those in his head. As he said, he puts them out to his subscribers at the report. But he came and said to buy Bitcoin. To me, that is one of the most powerful things right there. It's like he has all this information, people, and he's telling you that you won't go wrong by buying $40,000 Bitcoin. Like, we have to pound upon that because people still don't listen to it on the show. They come here and they say, Shiba swap. Like, do you have any Bitcoin yet? If the answer is no, you should get Bitcoin first, people.
I agree.
Yeah. Bitcoin says, do you have anything else?
Nothing else for me. I just want to appreciate you for coming on the show, Teeka. Definitely a legend in the game. More people should know your name and who you are. And I'm glad our crowd got to hear you. And again, hitting on King's point. Again, the reason why me and King can come on every day, tell you about altcoins, different news, and still tell you to buy Bitcoin at the end of it is because of people like Teeka. We understand the market. You can make life-changing money, but always take the sure bet. So thank you, Teeka, for coming on the show. I appreciate it, man. Hope to speak with you
very much.
Thanks again. And what did you want to leave anybody with anything else? Again, I know everyone can find you at defi.tech. Again, folks, that is in the comments, and I'll put that in the description, as well as palmbeachgroup.com. Any other places they can find you at, Teeka, or anything else you want to leave with our viewers here?
No, the last thing I would say is just be rational. Don't use leverage. If you just take a small position in Bitcoin, and if you want to play around with these other coins, sure, do that. But Bitcoin should be your core position, and just forget that you own it. And then 5 years from now, come back on the show and just say thank you. That's it.
There it is, folks. Again, that's Teeka Tiwari, Palm Beach Group, as well as DeFi.tech, DeFi Technologies. You can find them at both places. And then for those who want those new newsletters to get those in-depth reports, definitely check them out. I mean, it says a lot, the fact that you were here during the bear market too. I want to point that out. Like you said, you didn't hide your face. You stayed during 2018, 2019. Long story short, we were working on some projects on the back end with some people. And luckily enough, we got them out of the crypto market at the beginning of 2018. And we continue to do our show as well. But we do remember how difficult it was. We do remember how many people disappeared. All the experts disappeared.
Everybody left. Everybody
left. That's right.
So for you to still be here during those times, for you to be here before those times, during those times, and they're here after, you deserve to be in this space. So again, Teeka Tiwari, everyone, thank you for being here. We appreciate having you. And we can't wait to get you back on for sure.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
All right. Take care. As always, folks, that was the show for today. Make sure you smash that like and share and join us tomorrow with some more crypto news.